Jocks and Jills podcast, presented as always by CCM. And Tessa, what a week it was. It's a finals edition of the Jocks and Jills podcast. It's also an on-the-road edition of the Jocks and Jills podcast. I am currently in Saginaw, Michigan. I'm actually in Frankenmuth, Michigan, staying like 20 minutes away from the rink. It's a Bavarian village in the middle of Michigan. Mm-hmm. It features the world's largest Christmas store.
Okay.
And a couple fried chicken places. It's honestly really cute. Like, I'm not hating. I've been loving it. I've been loving it here. I might actually stay. But you have a little bit more of a relevant assignment in the PWHL Finals.
Can't go wrong with the fried chicken. Yeah, we traveled from Boston to St. Paul, Minnesota. Which has been a blasty blast. Our hotel's right across the rink, and it's got a bar called Smorgies attached to it. And
nice.
West 7th, for those who don't know, in Minnesota, in St. Paul, West 7th's got some super fun spots. Obviously, the city's been popping off because the Timberwolves are in action in the playoffs. Not doing so well right now. Just don't tell anybody here. They all know it, but don't rub it in. Yeah, and literally, my collegiate career began with me meeting my forever roommate. I should say forever roommate. We don't live together anymore.
Forever roommate. Yeah. One time my boyfriend took a picture of myself and my university roommate, and he said, "Stay roommates forever." And we looked at one another. We were like, "Roommates forever."
But legit, she's like my bestest pal of my whole life. Like, she's the sister that I got to pick. And we met each other at orientation, before freshman year. And I remember I asked my coach, I was like, I'm never going to ask you for anything except for this. She needs to be my roommate. And she was like, all right, cool. And we were roomies ever since. And she's from St. Paul, Minnesota. And we were freshman roommates. And then we rented a house with like 4 other ladies, and 3 of the 4 were also from Minnesota. So I've been having a time here reconnecting with all my people. Now listen, my freshman roommate, she's not here. She lives in Columbus still. She married a football player, and they live there, and they've got a really beautiful family. Krista, Ben, Aiden, and Reagan. They aren't here, but her parents still live here. So my other roommate, Katie, has picked me up from time to time, and we spent the day on the lake with her parents, Patty and Lou.
Oh, and then, that's awesome.
Girl. And then Patty and Lou came to game 3, as did an old teammate of mine, Jean, with her 2 kids. And they watched the game, cheered on, went out for a couple drinks afterwards at Tom Reed's. Listen to what Tom Reed's does. Hey, everyone out there who owns a bar and thinks they're sports fanatics. You know what they do here in St. Paul, Minnesota? For the entirety, puck drop to puck stop during the PWHL games, they serve 2-for-1 drinks.
Wow, that is good.
Tell me about it. Yeah. They do it for the PWHL. They do it for the Wild games. They do it for the Timberwolves games. And I'm pretty sure they probably do it for like even the ladies soccer games and stuff. But those were the games that I know about. Anyways, we went to Tom Reed's. Met up with Patty and Lou again, ran into my roommate's little brother. It was like this whole nostalgic thing. I felt like I was back in university. It was great reconnecting with a lot of my Minnesota peeps that I love so much. And then another one of my roommates, also a Minnesotan, Erin Keys, she was like, what are you doing on your off day on Saturday? I'm like, I don't know what's really going on around the city. And she was like, I'm going to take my kid, her and her wife are going to take her kid out to what's called Elko Raceway.
Okay.
Girl, it was so much fun. It is like hillbilly racing. There's like...
Wait, I've been here before.
You've been to Elko Racetrack?
You're speaking to my youth right now. Yeah. This is my dad's kitchen that you're talking about. My dad and his brothers ripped this place.
There's like monster trucks, and they're racing all sorts of different kind of cars, like Chevrolet, like old Chevys, ripping around this track. I'm like, we're standing like right near the fence, and there's like a bunch of us there with a bunch of kids. I'm like,
oh, and you get hit with the dirt. You got to be wearing sunglasses, honestly.
I was like, this is not safe, but it was a ton of fun. And let me tell you, Keezy had it right. Going to Elko
Dirt track
Racetrack.
racing is awesome, dude. Like, it's so fun to watch in the summertime.
And there was like lumberjack competitions. I'm like, we take one of these every weekend. I know. I know.
What's that
So
place
if you're
called
ever
in
down in
Minnesota? Paul Bunyan's. He's the lumberjack, right? You know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
Paul
about right
Bunyan
now?
is a
Okay,
lumberjack.
Minnesotans speak to me. There's a restaurant. It's called Paul Bunyan's. It was really good as a kid. I think they serve family style meals. Anyways, that's my rant about
Never been
restaurants in
there. I
Minnesota.
will say, though, Elko Raceway or Racetrack, whatever the heck it is, kudos to you. Thanks for a good time.
Yo, you got a lot of restaurant recommendations in Lowell also. Like our DMs were flooded with restaurant recommendations in Lowell. And so were our emails.
I know. And I didn't need as much help here because it was just great. We got West 7th. We were basically hooked up. But
Yeah.
yeah, Lowell. Shout out to Wayne. Wayne and who else sent us some? There's somebody else that sent us some
There were a
Lowell
few. There are a few. But you
suggestions.
got some good bites in Lowell and you're
Well,
going back
we're
again.
going back now, so we
Yep.
gotta try them out, I guess. I gotta
Yeah.
also give a shout out to Eddie, my husband. He's just been holding it down with both kids. Like,
Oh, how's he doing?
probably not well, I'm gonna guess. Listen, we got a three-nager and a terrible two happening,
They're the
and apparently,
best.
dude, yeah, when you just swoop in to babysit for like an hour at
Swoop
night
in
before
with
they go to sleep,
babysitting
Julia.
and some chocolate.
Buddy,
Bye.
they apparently they've been just well, our youngest was refusing to nap and anyway, so he's been in it. He's been in the vortex of toddlerville. So
Oh,
thanks,
Eddie.
Ed, for supporting not only your wife but women's hockey as well. We love you.
You have it on your back, right, Ed? You're doing the work. You're the best.
Yeah, man. Just like I feel bad because some of the stories, like I'm giggling, but then at the same time, I'm like, oh my God, if that was me, I'd be losing it.
For real. For real.
Laughing with you, not at you, Ed.
Hearts. Anyways, before we
Heartsies.
get to our headlines this week, Tessa, we got to take a quick break to give some love to our pals at Baton Rouge. And honestly, we've gotten a few messages over the past week
We
or so
have.
saying that their new
Yeah.
favorite moment in the podcast is when Tessa and I take a moment to just, kick back and go on and on about ribs and lobster. And how can we not? Like, it's the best.
Buddy, right? Garlic butter. I mean, try and argue me on that. Ribs, no one's bugging me on that. AAA grade A
Nope.
steak and the best times at Baton Rouge. Come on, baby. Telling you, everybody,
Yeah.
find a location near you. Try out the new lobster menu. Dropped what, May 8th? Everything
Yep.
from lobster bisque, which I know nothing about because I haven't tried it, but I will. Tacos, clam chowder. Clam chowder is perfect that we're dropping that because we're going back to Boston.
For sure.
What about lobster garlic bread? That's a thing. They have it.
Dude, I
I'm
was
telling
so
you.
intrigued
Go
by
try it.
lobster garlic bread. We must.
Yeah.
We must go when I am back in Canada to Baton Rouge. Got to try out the garlic bread lobster. We're going to be there as soon as we touch back down in Canada. And we hope you are
Garlic bread
too.
lobster or lobster garlic bread. We will be there and we will try it. We'll see you there. People should come join us. We should let them know when we're going.
One day we'll do a group Jocks and Jill's Day to Baton Rouge.
Yeah, I agree. We should. It's a must.
Our headline segment delivered by Pizza, bringing the sauce to get you game ready. And game ready are the two ladies that we have with us right now. We've got Kenzie Lalonde with us if you're just listening and not watching. Cheryl Pounder's back with us for our headline segment this week. Voices of the PWHL, and they were in for another marathon in Game 4 tonight. God bless you two and how much work you've had to do these playoffs. But before we get to... yeah, for real. Before we get to Game 4 and what happened tonight, let's talk about Game 3. Minnesota took the win there, guys, and Michaela Cava and Taylor Heise were really the stars in that one.
Yeah, I think that was an interesting game. Kind of like a slower paced game, I found, and whether that was lack of the physical nature of it. But, I think at the end of the 40 minutes, Mueller, final seconds to get a goal there for Boston, gave it a little bit of life, but then it kind of just fizzled out. And goaltending was the story, and then it changed, but it came back in Game 4.
Mm-hmm.
It came back, and you mentioned Cava and Heise, two players who are likely up for the MVP of the playoffs
If Minnesota wins.
And we spoke to Ken Klee before both games and just said, did you consider switching him up at any point? And he did say to us that, even when they were on their losing streak, although he has, put the lines in a blender over the course of the season. He didn't want to change them up because he really felt that they were still getting good looks. And when you look at both of these women, Cava just has that IQ, right? She knows where Heisey is. Heisey, people draw to Heisey right away, and Cava knows how to come through the middle of the ice. We saw that in one of her goals. Just, there's a chemistry there where one is, the other one is not far away. And they just really know how to open up space together. They've been a real dynamic duo.
I don't know about you two, but I felt like in game 3, obviously, Minnesota hadn't been defeated on home ice in the playoffs yet. Minnesota, I felt like they were cooking, but not at their usual pace. But I felt like it was because Boston, to me, looked so beat up and battered, and they looked so out of gas. Like, in my head, I kept saying, they better dip into Hillary Knight's Red Bull sponsorship here. Like that, I literally was like, someone roll in the cases of Red Bull for this team because they look like they're tapping out. And even watching them get off the ice after that game, it was just the look of defeat. And I remember thinking to myself, well, game 4 is a lock, which is the worst thing to think or say in the playoffs ever, because the last game to win the last game to punch the ticket to the trophy is the hardest to do. But it just looked like that, and it felt like that. And I'm not sure if you share the same sentiment, but I truly was just like, nah, this is it for Boston. They're limping into game 4.
Yeah, you certainly felt like they were out of gas.
Yeah.
And Minnesota was starting to freewheel a little bit. Mississauga, that's, it's a late night, double overtime. That's where I'm from. Did I just say Mississauga? Bring it, MISSISSAUG.
Send Poundy home.
That was I remember that chant, Mississauga. Anyway, when you go back, though, to that, I really felt like Minnesota did take away the neutral zone. They set up a trap. Boston played into it. They were playing a man-on-man defense, player-on-player defense. So really didn't feel like they could get anything going, even when they separated player from puck. But one of the metrics we looked at, Kenzie, was the hits. And if you look at Boston's first game, 35 hits, their second 30, and then all of a sudden game 3 was 10. That's a significant difference. And so for a team that's supposed to be their identity, right? They weren't playing to their game. Minnesota was playing to theirs. Right. And so you really felt that. I really felt like that was kind of the story of the game, whether they couldn't get there first, whether they were tired, there's an injury bug. But yeah, I really felt like the finesse and the speed was certainly in Minnesota's hands that game.
And I think what I'll just add to that is I felt the tiredness exploited their lack of goal scoring. That's been an issue for them all year long. They only put up 50 goals for all year, lowest in the league. And it's been scoring by committee. Like Hillary Knight had the most goals on that team. She only had 6. Whereas you look at other teams that are very top heavy, and it's been, but depth in the sense of players that don't get a lot of minutes, where depth can also mean the term of any given line can get the goal scoring done, which has been their MO throughout the regular season. But here in the playoffs, it's been depth in the sense of Wenskowski, Amanda Pelkey, that do not get big minutes scoring the goal. So it's even kind of further down that depth, Jess Healy, further down the depth chart. And I just felt with no gas left in the tank, no one can finish their check, no goal scoring. You got those numbers stacked up against you. So I just felt that really exploited their lack of goal scoring in that game when you're out of gas.
Well, and it's interesting that Ken Klee did say that he's been utilizing his lineup because he truly believes that players like Taylor Heisey, their sweet spot is in around that 16, 17 minute mark. So he feels like he's got a real deep team. So you will see that kind of line out there. And, so I it is interesting to see how it unfolds from day to day. But certainly, of course, Kessel talked to us about, listen, this is a 24 game season. And when you're a physical team and all of a sudden you've played 10 games in a month with travel.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden that wear and tear starts to become a little more evident. Yeah.
Frankel's been the backbone and the reason why Boston has made it this far. In that game 3, though, after those 2 goals went in, did either of you think for a hot second, wouldn't hurt to put Soderberg in for a minute?
No. Yeah, it didn't really fly by me.
Not at all. Their go. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't think they were going to change it. I did. Yeah, I thought for a second that in game one, Matty Rooney might have come out to start the third. I wasn't sure. We spoke to Ken Klee about that, and he said no, it really didn't enter his mind, because in a series like this, whether you lose 6-1, 5-1, 4-1 in your first game, and he's at a tandem, he wanted to make sure that the women knew that next game is the most important one, because in a 5-game series, it's much different than a 7-game series, because you're never down 3-0, right? You're down 2-0, but now all of a sudden you only need one game. So if it's tied 1-1, well, now it's 2-1. So someone can win and hoist the cup, or someone can win and it can be even. So it's a different dynamic with it being 5 games versus a 7-game series. But you did think Soderbergh.
I did think that, yeah, for a second.
Sometimes you gotta change it up, playing different.
Just play different. But my thing was like, she's not a bad goalie. And when the times that she's had to step in, she played well. And sometimes your team needs a little swift kick in the rear to say, look, smarten up. But I like the fact that Courtney Kessel, I mean, I thought it. I was like, I doubt she'll do it. But I love the fact that Courtney Kessel was like, you know what, Frankel, you're it. This is you. And we trust our team. Listen, ladies, we're trusting you to claw your way back in and keep this close. Frankel kept it close. She was great throughout that entire second period. And sure enough, Mueller, well, that play was just unbelievable. First of all, that goal was unbelievable in game 3 to tie it up heading into the third. Boston being Boston, showing all they needed was one chance to keep it close. Anyways, lo and behold, that game does not end Boston's way. And it really pushed us to assume things about game 4 that I at least was very wrong about.
I think the greatest resume, and whether it's recency bias or not, was Soderbergh against Canada in that quarterfinal game at the 2023 Women's Worlds in Brampton. She was the difference maker.
Like 53 saves or something to that effect. Yeah, it was crazy.
So she has the resume to be the difference maker. So there is that piece that lives in my mind, and maybe you do think.
I mean, that's probably what has me gunning that way. My thing was more like give your team a swift kick in the rear, because Boston didn't look like the Boston I wanted. Like you said, 10 hits in that game. I was like, where are you guys? Like, my thing was too, in game 3, they had 2 days off to rest and recoup. And that's how you're coming out?
Well, and I also think that they didn't play overly well defensively. And I think sometimes when you have a goaltender that's making, I don't know, anywhere from how many saves a game, that you get a little bit, not cheating, but, sometimes your D zone, you got a backup. You got someone to stand in there and make a big save for you. So that's where the mindset could be about, to kind of hammer out the details again, whether you might have had a switch. But I mean, she has been, for the most part, the green monster. So, yeah. Say it again. The wall. You don't do that in the booth very often. Okay.
Okay, I loved what Courtney Kessel said after that game. I think a reporter asked her something to the effect of like, so what are you going to do to have to win like one more game here, keep your team alive? And she very sternly responded, 2 more games. It was such a badass coach moment, in my opinion. I love a good badass coach one-liner in a post-game press conference.
Courtney Burchard, that girl is wildly competitive. And she's angry competitive. Like, she'll run your mom over twice to win a game and not look back. Like, that's how she is. And like, don't think that her plan coming into game 4 wasn't well thought out. After game 1, I had asked her, about adding Lexi Agia to the room. Is she the one that gets things going? Blah, blah, blah. The first thing she said to me was, she's like, no, that's Babstock.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's cool. Like, what about her? And she was like, that girl's unhinged, man. And I got to keep her on a leash sometimes, but sometimes I just take her off the leash. Game 4, there was no leash anywhere found in the Excel Energy Center, because Babstock was the one that set the precedent in that game. And we said on our panel, Becky Keller said, she was like, look, if you're going to get Babstock to go out there and wreak havoc on things, one, she went right at Taylor Heisey. And then she was like, WWE. And then she was like, all right, Heisey didn't come back at me too hard. Sophie Jakes, what are you up to? Went after Sophie Jakes. And then Taylor Heisey was like, stop doing that. And went after Babstock. Babstock goes to the box and Heisey. I'll take that every day if I'm a Boston coach. And Babstock was out there in overtime too. Don't think Courtney didn't know what was going on.
Out there with the top line.
She was out there. Listen, we were having a chuckle. I'm like, oh man, I'm worried for everyone's safety every time she went out there. And then after they won, Babstock stood out there and waved to each and every single Minnesota fan. Don't think this rivalry. I swear to God, she was the last one off.
I did not see that.
People,
that is incredible.
She did.
How could we not mention Reagan's interview as well? Like no leash anywhere, not with the mic in her face, not ever. I love it.
She was dropping that.
That's so good,
that was
dude.
happening.
Yeah. Anyways, I literally this rivalry like exploded with Game 4, and like next season's gonna be so cool to see. Regardless, Game 4, let's talk about it. Let's break it down because it was everything and more, and it was a 1-0 hockey game.
I know.
This feels so stupid to say. Here we are again talking about a very exciting 0-0 hockey game all the way through into overtime. Like, holy crow. Not to mention there was 13,100 and some people in the arena. Minnesota, shout out to you. I love you guys. 2 games in a row now. It is a long weekend. On Friday, on Game 3, the Timberwolves were in action in Minnesota. The Twins were in action in Minnesota. So were the ladies. And they had 10,000 plus fans each and every time. And it's a long freaking weekend. People in Minnesota, I don't know if everyone out there understands, they go to their cabin.
Lake.
That is what they do. Yep. We are in the land of 10,000 lakes. They go to their cabin. People did not go to their cabin. Never mind 10,000 lakes. Let's talk about 10,000 fans in the rink. Glorious. Love you, Minnesotans. You guys are the best for showing up and showing out. Where do we start with Game 4? You don't.
That was early. Nice delivery.
It
really was.
The finals aerobics with the fans. Like they were up, they were down. They were up, they were cheering, they were not. And the best example was one of like Zumwinkle's net drives. She had like a chance and she missed it. She dropped it in the corner. And I almost chuckled on the broadcast because I could see the fans sitting, rising, sitting, standing as she tried for a shot, and then Franco quickly made a save, and then she picked it up, and there was another chance, and the fans were just like standing and sitting, and I had to kind of tune it out because I was gonna laugh.
Is it kind of like tennis when they're watching the ball and you see their head going left to right, left to right?
The best is what people don't know. If you could put like a fly on the wall or a little camera that you could kind of creep in with Kenzie and I, is like we both stand during the broadcast, and then every once in a while she'll see something like that and start laughing. Then I'm like looking over at her, and then I start chuckling. And sometimes you got to hit your talk back because you're in full on gid mode. So if all of a sudden you start laughing on air, you can't, right? So I'm now on talk back, but she's still calm to play. So, you know, I can sense the elevation in her voice because she's got laughter in her voice. She's Abby Cook, and I called her Cookie, and I just started laughing. So then I pick up and start talking because she just said Cookie, and I'm like, so I start looking at her. Then she goes back to play, and I've got my head down, and I'm laughing. And she looks over at me, and I'm like, I'm sorry.
I can't look at you because I'm like, you're gonna make me laugh. So I'm doing like one of these, trying to block her out. And
for those that don't know what talkback is, it cuts your voice out. If you hit the button, the people that are listening or watching the game cannot hear you. Anyways,
yeah, we need that button.
And that is used a lot.
We ride it hard.
Yeah.
And overtime, mine just for.
No, I feel bad for you, Julia, because I knew you were covering the Memorial Cup, and I was like, I really hope Julia's got this going on her phone. And that's when I just randomly texted you. I'm like, are you watching this? And you're like, I have terrible Wi-Fi. I can't tune in. You're like straight panic through text.
I can vouch for the community here in Saginaw. I cannot vouch for the Wi-Fi or cellular data. That's something I cannot speak to, but I was able to catch up pretty good. It was really exciting. The whole thing was like a good game. The whole ebb and flow was an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I felt like that was, and correct me if I'm wrong, you two, but I feel like that was the best postseason game I've seen Boston play.
Yeah, I would say so. I think in Game 1 versus Montreal, they dominated a good chunk of it. Yeah, what did I say?
Yeah, you said Montreal. It's okay.
God, it's been a long day. All right. So I think, yes, this was a commanding game for them.
Agree? Disagree?
Yeah, no, I think that especially coming off last game.
Yeah.
Where you weren't sure what you were going to get, or you thought you were in this polarizing, you weren't sure, or you thought that they had nothing left. And then right from the get-go, there was a couple hits. Megan Keller had one at center ice right away. And you're like, oh, and there was more jump to their step. Now, of course, Courtney Kessel did change things up in their D zone.
And their lineup, I will say. Hillary Knight, Rattray, Hannah Brandt.
Sarad is back.
Sophie Shirley with the Gia, and Lauren Gable, no longer the 13th forward.
Hello.
Look, I don't know if that was Courtney's idea or if the players are just like, this is who we want to play with, but whatever it was, holy Moses, that needs to be the lineup in game 5. Like, you can't, you're not changing that.
I agree. You think she came into this game, she didn't even meet 7 minutes yet. And she had, and I think upwards of 16, 17 minutes going into that overtime.
Now, in all fairness, she's coming off LTIR, right? Shoulder, everything else. But that woman can score. She scored in every league she's played in, PHF MVP with 40 points, 20 and 20. But she's got that lethal shot. She can get to those spots. So I think that just elevating her to see if there could have been more offense, because that's one of the things. They've had a real tough time generating any kind of offense if you think about it, right? So
but the one thing we do need to talk about is the disallowed goal in overtime. Minnesota's just going to be mad about this forever. If they ever let these referees back in this state, I would be very surprised. No matter what we think about this, I just know that these Minnesotan fans are passionate about their hockey, and that place popped off when Sophie Jakes scored what she thought was the overtime winner to claim
against Foster.
To claim the Walter Cup. But it was revealed upon review that there was in fact goaltender interference by Taylor Heisey. And look, I wanted nothing more than for an Ohio State Buckeye alumni to score the game winner to claim the Walter Cup, and for it to be Sophie Jakes. I'm a massive fan. I love her family. But when you look at it, if you remove yourself from the fandom and you look at it, I would have to say, ladies, and I want to hear your honest opinion, that the referees in review did, in fact, get that call correct. Who would like to take it first?
Yeah, no, I think that was 100% the right call in unanimous decision. Officials, central, head officials, central review system, all on the same page. Absolutely, goaltender interference, a lot on the line, and it was the right call at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Even, obviously it goes to central review. The official is obviously making the call, the central review, all these things are in play at the time. But, the ruling was that Heisey did go in. She was went in of her own accord. And anytime a goaltender is in the crease, they have to be able to move freely to be able to make a save, which she wasn't. So I do think it was the correct call, as difficult as it is for Minnesota. And the worst part for Minnesota being in that home barn, all of those, all of the fans, your helmets are off, your sticks on the ice, you've celebrated. Now you gotta pick it all up. And I was there, part of the 2019 Finland review.
God, trauma.
20 minutes. May I repeat, 20 minutes of that. Like, no, beer's on the ice,
Crazy.
Right? Finland's like, they've thrown the beer on the ice. The snow angels are being made. There were like all of it. And then finding a way to pick up your stuff, put it back on. And that emotion in and of itself was a reason why I think that 10 seconds right after, off the faceoff, Alina Mueller gets a huge opportunity. And then a minute later, Alina Mueller scores. So
imagery of it though was when the official waves at no goal, Cummins waves at no goal, and in behind him is an image of one of the Minnesota sticks just blatantly laying on the ice because the women are in the corner celebrating. And it's just so disheartening to look back and see him going no goal, and there's gear in behind him on the ice.
Yeah, and I had talked to a bunch of people in and around the league, and I straight up asked if that was a Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Final, do you think the call would be the same? And they said absolutely. Yeah, there's no doubt everyone was on the same page that was making this call, that this was the right thing to do. And here's the thing: they didn't want it to be a Brett Hull moment where it was that the right call. It doesn't matter. It was the call. They wanted it to be the right call. This is the inaugural season of the PWHL. They needed to be the right call. And so
Craig
that is
Button
it.
is going to hear this podcast. He's going to be so rattled at you for that.
100%. And that is fine, Butsy. You know I love you, but you're a Wolverine. Go Bucks all day, every day, baby.
Go green.
But yeah, okay, Cheryl, easy. You guys are like the little brother that no one cares about and beats up on all the time.
Come on.
Yeah, Spartans, whatever. But in all fairness, it felt like truly when you watch Taylor Heisey cut in, there was a small whack on her pads, but there wasn't enough. It was not
she
enough
lost an edge.
listen, I was thinking, look, if I'm a referee and I can kind of make a call on that might be a trip, I would do it, but there wasn't enough there just for the moment, right? And she was going down a little bit before it. But listen, if that stick would have hit her knee, if that stick would have hit her skate instead of her knee, 100% that would have been a goal. I guarantee you, because then there would have been a tripping call, and that would have been the end of it. But it wasn't. So here we are, ladies, heading into game 5,
Well, and
going back to Boston.
And that's, I think, what you remember too. We're going back to Boston, but you also want to get it right because there's 2 teams out there too, right? So both of them have a dream of hoisting the Walter Cup for the first time, and so when it is that conclusive to the parties involved, and all the parties unanimously decided that this was a good. This was not a good goal. So anyway,
Listen to Cheryl's
Unanimous.
lawyer jargon.
I know.
Shut up.
I tried to be politically correct. It's probably because you fed me a beer already.
I did. I will say that on the final thought, the saddest image we had was this young boy,
The crying kid. I was just going to bring that up. Oh my gosh.
His cat, like he was distraught, and it just goes to show how passionate the Minnesota fan base was, and it just kind of encapsulated the moment of these fans wanted it that bad.
Yeah, so bad. They came back from their cabins. He wasn't just like teary-eyed. He was sobbing.
No, he was crying.
And he was wiping his tears away with his PWHL Walter Cup towelette that they handed out.
Oh my
at the
gosh.
beginning
Wait,
of
so
the game.
was he crying when the goal got disallowed or when Mueller
No,
scored?
no. It wasn't when the goal was disallowed. It was after Mueller scored,
Okay.
and the
Gotcha.
game was over, and he couldn't believe it, and the fans were exiting, and he was not, and he stood there crying.
He was not okay with
Poor
it.
Angel.
I do have to point this out too, though. After the game, we usually quickly turn our chairs around to get ready for our post-game stuff, to close out the show and everything, and send viewers on to whatever it is they have to watch after our broadcast. But Minnesota stood there at center
that's
ice.
not women's hockey.
Yeah, Minnesota stood there at center ice, tapped their sticks, saluted their fans, and thanked them for coming, because after all, this is the last game of the season that they're doing here. They all went in the middle to hug. Cassie Campbell Pascal actually pointed this out to me after, and I had noticed. I was like, who's going to be the one talking if anyone's talking? And Lee Steckline addressed the team at center ice. And for those who don't understand or appreciate or know who Lee Steckline is, that girl, let me tell you, her voice carries some serious weight. I have mad respect from her, and I am long gone retired, not only as a person, but as a player. And I can only tell you that whatever was said out on the ice there will be carried over in 3 days when they are in Boston. And I don't know what was said, but I'm very thankful and glad that she did, because that team was torn apart and beaten down and battered and like distraught after that game. And I feel like she did her due diligence there in making sure that that team was picked right back up.
Kenzie and I and you, Tess, we've been fortunate to be in the game for a long period of time. And it's interesting. You talk to different coaches come in and out of programs, different players come in and out of programs. But anytime you ask anyone, any coach, anyone about Lee Steckline, the word that they use is natural born leader. And it's interesting because we've watched her be placed on the national team where they tried to get her out of retirement with someone like a Carolyn Harvey. Right. And then you all of a sudden see Carolyn Harvey's game elevate. In this situation, you see her aligned at the beginning when Sophie Jakes comes over. And that is a strategic coaching decision, because coaches know that she plays for others, that she plays the right way. She plays hard. She loves the game. She's passionate, but also she's just that leader that knows how to elevate and lifts you up. And so a perfect voice, I would think, leading into a game 5 after a situation like that.
And I'm going to ask Ken Klee before I did say in the room, if there needs something to be said, if a word is said, if it's a quiet locker room and someone's saying something, who is it? And he just kind of said, it's Lee, without a doubt. Like, she will always be the one to vocalize something. The room listens when Lee speaks, and we'll never know maybe what was said. It'll probably stay amongst them, but what better person to lead them through what will be one of the most challenging moments in their hockey careers.
Absolutely. I do have to point this out as well. I did run into Kelly Panic's mother, aunt, and grandmother at the game. I know, Julia, you're laughing, but listen. Oh, dude, they've been hanging out around the set the whole time. But Kelly Panic had one hell of a game today, and I'm not just saying it because her mom, Molly's the best. I'm saying it because she played one of the best hockey games I think I've seen her play all season. I told Keller I'd put 5 on her to score. And she, right?
Yeah, I had it.
She was in the kitchen and she was cooking up a 5-course meal. She was hot tonight. And I was like, I hope she only builds on this because it was really cool to see. And listen, I'm not pooping on anybody on Boston. It's just Kelly Panic really stuck out to me tonight because, in all fairness, like, let's be honest, Minnesota carried 90% of the possession in today's game.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you mentioned Kelly Panic because you're the panel or we're talking. There's flashy players and there's players that the subtle details to their game that make everyone better. And sometimes it gets missed or lost. Whether she's strong in the dot, whether she's making the right place, feathering passes. She said it in her interview with Reagan. I'm going to feed the beast. If Zongwinkle is open, I'm going to make that play. She's in the right spots. She gets lost around the net. So it's all of these subtle things. She slows down as she enters the offensive blue line so that she can, wait for a little help, wait for a drive. So it's all of those little details. And I would agree, in the game, we talked about the talk back button, you're consistently marking as an analyst. I want to see that play if I can, or I want to see that play. And we got to a point in the game where I was like, well, how many are we at? And they're like, I'm like, well, let's talk about an intermission, because you're constantly being like, oh, that play by Panic. Oh, that play by Panic. Oh, by that play by Panic. And no, it's not an end-to-end rush, but it's a detail that you put them all together and it makes such a massive difference. And so that's Kelly Panic, right? That's Kelly Panic.
And on the flip side of things, I will say another player that had a massive impact on this game on the Boston side, outside of Babcock, was Fracken. She was the kind of player that I was and always wanted to be in that game. Where she was she was like chipping people behind the play. She was like getting the stick up a little too high sometimes. She was really getting under people's skin. Every time Heisey entered the zone, she made sure Heisey knew that she was there. And it's the type of hockey that always makes the good players think. And that's, I think Fracken's got a really good chip on her shoulder. And I dig the way that kid plays. So I just wanted to give her a shout out too.
No, I think the animated moment with Panic and her colliding right in the slot and the whole like dun 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 right at the official. I'm like, she's got it, man.
Yeah. Again, just because we loved the way she was jimmying her stick.
Like, all right, what do you come back with? And I'm like, we got to see that again. That's some good stuff. Leaving it all out, Sarah.
So a lot of players doing a lot of things right.
Yeah. You guys want to toss out? This episode is going to drop on Monday when our listeners are hearing this. Next time we have an episode, we're going to have a PWHL champion. Are we going to put our butts on the line and do a little prediction here?
Think about it.
I have no idea how to predict this game. I know, man. It's impossible to pick who's going to win this game.
Here's the deal. This is such a goaltending battle that it is like so unfair to all of us watching, trying to pick a winner. Right. I mean, I shouldn't say it's unfair to us watching because I'm here for it. Trying to pick a goal scorer, trying to pick a winner because, and it's crazy. It's 2 American goaltenders just going toe to toe, or 3, right. I should say, because Rooney was in the mix, but going toe to toe. And it's like I said, Boston, they just need one bounce. They need one bounce to make it a game. And Minnesota is like 2 hits away from, calling it quits sometimes because Boston's just being a bully. And yet, they're 1 turnover in the neutral zone away from turning it the other way and calling it a game.
Maybe it's going to be the first team that scores on the power play.
Oh my gosh. Don't
I
even
was
get me
gonna
started.
say,
Throw up that
man,
stat one more
still.
time. I'm gonna lose it.
Oh my God. It's
I'm gonna dig deeper. I
They
wonder
look
who the
stale
scores be.
too. I got to see a little
Oh.
bit of Boston's tonight. It's
Beautiful
just like,
passing
oh my gosh.
sequences. Someone's got to put that sucker in the net.
Too much
But
passing,
it's like
too much
watching
passing.
Disney on ice. Like I can't watch another pass. It's a hockey game.
Beautiful puck movement.
It is. It's artsy.
they look that dot to dot pass too often.
Well, someone's got to just pull the trigger
They
off,
got to pull the trigger.
regardless.
Let her go, Zom. Let it go from the blue line. Mueller, do some dancing, honey.
Yeah, I thought Zombie was going to score.
Yeah,
She did. That was the best game Michael I've seen. I think I've seen her play in a little while.
Yeah.
But now that we've talked about game 4, dude, another double OT game in the PWHL, and this time it was in the finals, Julia. I mean, what the hell is Boston still doing this?
Well, it's got to have a thing or two to do with Gatorade, obviously.
Yeah. Buddy, it's scientifically formulated, so you never stop competing. Oddly enough, that's exactly what's been happening, and happening time and time again. They never stop. And I'm just gonna guess, like I said before, what was it, triple OT? I guess they guzzled a gallon. I'm gonna have to go a gallon again today. Each player, single-handedly, a gallon.
For real. I think I saw one of the goalies actually down half a bottle just during one whistle. So thankfully, Gatorade has electrolytes that replenish their lost sweat, carbs that fuel their muscles, and fluids to keep them hydrated.
Gatorade fueling every shift of the PWHL and their dramatic overtime marathons as well, fueling Kenzie and Cheryl up in the booth.
Game 7, guys, Wednesday. You're going to see all 3 of those ladies on the broadcast. Goes down in Boston. If you're in Boston, I think that game sold out in like 10 minutes. So we'll see you there. All right, guys, our next guest on the Jocks and Jills podcast presented by Royale is someone who stole everyone's heart this year in New York. She made history. She's won everywhere in the NCAA, on the world stage, and at the Olympics. We've got the first ever goal scorer in PWHL history with us, guys. It's Ella Shelton.
Woo, Ella!
Woohoo!
Hi, guys. So excited. I'm so excited when Tessa texted me and gave me the okay to come on the podcast, so I was very excited.
It's an honor, truly. Ella, before we get into you and get into the interview, we're going to start like this. Because our interview segment is now sponsored by Royale, we're asking every player that comes on the podcast, first thing when they come on, what player in the league do you think has the softest mitts?
Ooh. I'm going to have to go with Victoria Bach. She's so silky out there, and she's one player that, you never know when she's shooting or when she's going to, toe drag or anything like you. She always keeps you guessing, so she's definitely one I think of with silky mitts.
She had a nice feed. Yeah, she had a nice feed to, was it Rebecca Leslie in that elimination game that they had?
Yeah.
She was one of their best players in that game.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Totally. Ella, let's get to you now. You're sitting at beautiful Shelwood Farms in Ingersoll, Ontario. Everyone knows you as Ella from the farm. We've all begged for a sweatshirt from the farm. Can you just give people background as to what life looks like growing up on a farm? What are your day-to-day chores and what kind of farm your family actually has?
Yeah, that's funny you say that it's Ella from the farm, because that has stuck with me since my junior days. One of my teammates back when I played London Devilettes, she was like, "Oh, it's Ella from the farm," and it has been with me since I've been 14 years old. So that's so funny that it's still carrying on now. But yeah, life on the farm is good. It's definitely different than New York. It's a different scenery that I'm seeing here. Birds are chirping and tractors are flying by, not necessarily ambulances or police officers always going by at racing speeds. So it's a different lifestyle, definitely a lower key vibe, I would say. But it's fun. It's been nice to be back with my family and see all my brothers that I haven't seen, and they're all doing their own thing. So it's hard for them to always get out to New York. But we actually are just finishing up planting. I got to plant again this year. My dad really trusted me with that. Last year was a big step for him to let his daughter sit in the tractor and really take hold of that onus of that task. So it's been fun to go back and do it. And then there's still all the same banter and make sure I'm not making the same mistakes I made last year, this year, because I don't want to wear that same you're the idiot cap or you made the mistake this time or you're going to take your sweater away until you make up for it. So it's been fun though.
So you get the sweater revoked if you mess up that bad. Is that how it works?
Well, I wouldn't say it completely revoked, but there's definitely, my brothers were joking with me because last year I made like a really big spill of beans, soybeans, that they come in these massive totes, and I was got it on its horse, and it doesn't like sit on it very well. There's like these two little pieces of wood that keep it on. And I took a corner way too fast. I was just whipping around, and the entire thing just went off the forks on the ground, beans everywhere, and my face just went, oh no. Like my dad's across the way. I'm like, oh no, like I'm gonna get like I don't even know, put in my room and never come out again. But I still have my sweater. I was rock picking, so hopefully that makes up for what I maybe did last year.
Just driving
Okay,
like you're in
rock
New York.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rock picking though, because when I asked you for one of those Shelwood Farms sweaters, you were like, "Well, actually, there's a rule with the sweaters. You got to do a certain task." Can you tell the people what the task is that you have to do to get a sweater?
Rock picking, it's as glorious as it sounds. Literally going up and down a field and picking up rocks that are probably the size of your hands. And it's funny, like Mash, Emma Smashmeyer, the first thing people ask us, like, what's the worst job as like being on a farm or having to help out on the farm? And simultaneously, we both just went rock picking. So it's not the most glorious job, but you do get a sweater at the end of it. So
And the point is so you don't mess up the tractor, right? Or the plow?
yeah,
That's why?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So you don't disrupt the equipment, you know. It's been so keep them out
But
of
then
it.
how do they get
Vehicles.
there? If everybody's
Great
done picking them,
question.
everybody's
Great
picking them. Who's
question.
planting the rocks?
Great question. I need to find that person because it's annoying. But most of it just keeps coming up from underneath. Like it just over the years just keeps turning up. And every time we work the ground, we make more rocks pop up. So maybe we're doing it to ourselves, you know, like we should just stop working the ground at that point.
It's probably the parents just keeping their kids busy, you know, late at night. Parents have a couple
Yeah.
glasses of wine. They're like,
Yeah.
let's go plant some rocks. Keep the kids busy for a bit.
That's for sure.
How pissed would you be if like you get to the point where your dad's like, well, Ella, I gotta tell you something.
I would
Let
be
you in a little
so
family
mad.
secret.
Yeah. Oh my
We
gosh.
plant rocks.
I would be
But seriously,
so mad.
what do you farm? Is it bean? Like you said you have bean?
Yeah, we have we used to be pig farmers, but now we just do cash crop and a lot of like custom work for other farmers that just want us to do their crops as well. So we plant soybeans, seed corn, and like feed corn for animals, and then we also do wheat. We used to do like snow peas or like peas that we eat as people, but we haven't really done that in a while. But the best thing now is my dad's trying to figure out maybe a way that we can harvest sunflower seeds. So
cool.
after wheat comes off in July, we usually plant a bunch of sunflowers, and then come like September, October, they bloom into this like beautiful field of just sunflowers. So we're trying to see if there's a way we can harvest them.
Start your own line of spits.
I know, yeah, that'd be. What would we call it?
Ella from the farm. You know, there's
Ella
Jenny from the block, Ella from the farm.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Ella from the
Ella-
farm. I like
Ella
that.
spit. Just stand on the bench
Yeah.
in between. You know, that's what easy way to
Or
put
like-
on the bench.
Put it in my last name, like Spitston. Spitz.
Yeah, Spitston. Spitston
or
Farms.
something. Yeah,
There's something there for sure.
I agree.
How did you get all the way from Ingersoll to Clarkson? Like, how did you pick a school? How did you ultimately end up deciding? What was that path like for you?
I had two junior coaches that both played NCAA. Kelly Patton was one, and she was a big advocate for me to kind of reach out to a bunch of schools and get me connected with, just getting to see what my options were. And she really actually pushed for UNH. They were one that were really interested in me, and Kelly was huge on them, obviously going there for 4 years and being so successful. And then it wasn't until Like there used to be these rush tournaments in Toronto where you could sign up for like a summer weekend. You'd get like a jersey and you'd be with like a bunch of girls, right? Like it was just a random kind of weekend that you would get these really cool jerseys and you would meet all these people that play either against you all the time or also looking to go in college. And both Shannon and Matt were my coaches in different games, I guess, on that one weekend. And then I just kind of got connected with them and then really fell in love with the school. It was the only school I really visited twice. And Matt was, really pushed for me to come there. He sent me a lot of emails or like spreadsheets. He's like, this is what I can do for you, or this is how I can help you. This is where I see you fit. Like he was showed a lot of interest in me, and all the schools did ultimately. But there's just something about like the small town of Ingersoll and the small town of Potsdam, although they're 6 hours apart, it just like felt like home. So it was very easy for me to like fit into that kind of community and vibe.
And at what point did you end up meeting Jinsey Dunn, now Jinsey Rose's brother? Was that pre-commitment to Clarkson or post? Were you already there?
I was already there, and yeah, I didn't actually meet Jinsey until I think it was my sophomore year. We played against each other in one of those U22 rivalry weekends.
Oh, yeah.
And at that point, her brother was a freshman and we had just become like friends. So I was like, oh, I think that's her brother. Like, or I think that's her, like, I think that's the sister of Josh. So then I was kind of like nervous because she had such like a presence at OSU, and you're just like, she is one that you really want to like you're impressed by her. And then it wasn't until later that when Josh and I started dating that me and Jinsey started to become friends. And then we just kind of, now that we played against each other nationally and now we play against each other in the league, it'd be interesting to see if we ever end up on the same team.
So you and Jinsey, good pals. What's with the Sheltonator nickname? Where does that one originate from? I know it's from her family, but how the heck did that come about? Like, I think it's hilarious. Their family calls you Sheltonator. Although her one brother called you Ellen for the longest time, didn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So when I was first going down to St. Louis to meet his family, for some reason, James, their youngest brother, thought my name was Ellen the entire time. So he was just like, oh, Josh, I'm so excited to meet Ellen. Like, I can't wait for her to come down. And Josh just kind of played it off. He's like, oh, okay. Like, who the hell's Ellen? Like, what? And then it wasn't until later that he found out that my name was Ella. So then the first time, though, that I went down there and I walked in the door, Josh and I were like, should I introduce myself to James as Ellen and see what he says and see what he does? So I'm like shaking his hand. I'm like meeting him. And I go, hi, James. Like, I'm Ellen. And he looks at me with the most confused face. And I was like, oh, I'm just kidding with you. Okay, my name's actually Ella. So it kind of took him a while to be like, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize her name was actually Ella. And then one day, I don't know what we were doing, but nicknames for me just kind of get thrown out left, right, and center. Like I feel like I have a lot that just kind of flow with either Ella or Shelton or Shella, like putting them together. And for him, one time we were just playing pool volleyball, and every time he would hit the ball, he was just like, this one's coming for you, Sheltonator. And I was like, okay. And this is like the first time meeting your family too, like one of the first times. And I'm like, this guy is so comfortable around me. I'm like, I love it because it makes me feel a lot more at ease. But ever since then, every time I like send a photo into our like Snapchat group chat or Josh sends a photo, the first thing he says is Sheltonator, or he'll call me and be like, Sheltonator, how are you? And then he'll give me the most Canadian accent, and it's a lot of fun.
That's
That
cute.
is so good. So Josh plays in the AHL for Cleveland, right? And I feel like if Book Talk, you know what I'm talking about right now, I feel like if Book Talk got their hands on that, they would go absolutely crazy with it. You know, everybody on Book Talk is loving the whole hockey player thing, and you being a hockey player too. I feel like there should be a book or something written about that. But I'm curious to know what it's like to watch his hockey games, like with the other girlfriends on the team. Do you like tell them stuff? Do they all know? Do you get to watch a lot of his games because you're always so busy? Like, what's your experience been like?
I would say most of my games of me watching him have been like just on TV. So I just pay for the AHL subscription and then I watch it via that. But every time I've gone to the game, first off, like Cleveland has a great facility for them. Like they play at the Cavaliers or facilities. So they put ice on top, or they put flooring on top of their ice for the basketball team and whatnot. So, but they get a significant amount of fans like every weekend, whether it's a Wednesday night or a Friday, Saturday. Like they do pretty well fan attendance wise. But the girlfriends and the wives get to sit in a box up in one of the corners. And it's a good view. Like you get to see everything in the game and whatnot. But it feels like every play that happens. I mean, I don't really talk a lot during his game. I'll be like, oh, or I'll be like, oh, that was a great pass or a great play. And then sometimes if I'm sitting beside one of them, they'll be like, what? Who was it? Was it Billy or was it so-and-so? Like, who was it? What did he do? Or I'd say, hi, Jake, great shot. And then Meg would be like, what did he do? How'd it go? Where? I'm confused. And so it's a lot of fun for like me because I'm like, oh, he just had a great shot from the blue line. It's a super simple thing, but like to them, it's like, oh yeah, like love that.
They're learning the game
So
through your eyes.
They are.
That's cool. Teacher
Yeah, it's
Ella,
fun.
stand in front. Okay, ladies,
Yeah.
this is a breakout. Here is icing.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. I like
And
that. That's
then
like a unique way
they
to
also,
start a relationship with them.
sorry. Yeah, it's been and they also like so they're in playoffs right now. So they just played Belleville the last round and now they're playing Syracuse and one of the girls tapped so much into Ella, do you think like they're gonna beat this team? Like should they beat this team? And I haven't really kept up on every other team unless it's in the PW. Like I really don't know. And I'm just like, I think so. Like I don't know. And then they go, will they go all the way? I'm like, I hope so. I mean, I don't really know these teams all that well either. So I think they just like look at me and go, oh, she plays hockey. She must know all this stuff, which I feel very flattered by, but it's just funny sometimes having those conversations.
I love it.
Did you have a playoff jacket this year? I must know.
Oh, no, I didn't. I didn't do one.
I wouldn't peg you.
I wasn't
as
sure I was
others
going to be there. I know, yeah. And I just, Josh was like, if you ever got a jacket, Ella, I think I would have to like either use that against you whenever I needed something or needed to do something. Be like, remember the jacket you got? Like, okay, well, let's not put that up there.
Get one for
I
him.
feel like
Laura.
he
That's
needs
fine.
exactly like he needs one of yours.
Yeah. Shelton
More fitting.
17.
You do some fun stuff with this family, though. Like you guys went on a fishing trip in Naples, which was pretty cool. Heard you and the captain really hit it off there. He was tossing some pretty neat questions your way.
Yeah, we always go down to Florida once in the summer, and it's just fun because the entire family gets to go, and the house is big enough that it can have everybody there, and it's the time to it's like the only time during the year that they're all in the same place at the same time. So it makes it easy, obviously, for his dad and all the siblings. And I'm not a huge fisher person. Like it's not like my first thing I choose to do. And even when I'm here at my own cottage, it's like I go on the boat to play music, to sit at the front and like just kind of hang out. I'm not always the one with a pole in the water.
You're more of a rock picker.
Exactly. Like I'm more of the rock pickers. I'm looking for rocks to pick. Anyway, so James, again, he was like, I really want to do this fishing charter, and he loves to do that kind of stuff. Loves the fishing and the marine side of things. So he booked this fishing charter, and at first I was like, oh, I don't have to go. Like I'm not a huge. If there's someone that really wants to do the fishing, like I don't have to be the one sitting in the boat. And they're like, no, I'm like, just come. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I go, and I was thinking that this is gonna be like a decently sized boat for 5 or 6 people to be on, and it was a kind of a tinier fishing boat. But I guess what turned out is the guy that originally was supposed to take us on the tour canceled, and he asked one of his friends to like fill in. So his friend fills in or whatever, and we get on this boat, and he doesn't really say anything to us. So we're just getting on the boat. We don't know what we're doing. We're just on the boat. We're like, oh, like, where are you from? I'm from here. It was like very stoic at the beginning. We're like, okay, I don't know how this fishing charter is going to go. And it's like tarpon, which are these massive, massive fish in Florida. And you don't catch them to eat them. You just catch to catch, and you throw them back in the water. And so all of a sudden, I think there is 6 or 7 of us, I can't remember, but we're all sitting on the boat, and he just starts baiting lines and throwing things in the water, baiting more lines, throwing things in the water. And we're like, can we help? Like, how does this work? Like, how does the procedure go? Like, do we just grab a rod or what? And he's just like, well, we have to wait for the fish to catch on. Like, okay, well, whatever. We're just kind of like going with the flow at this point. We said, okay, James, you get the first fish. And so all of a sudden, this rod like bends, and James goes over there and starts reeling it in. And we had no instruction about how this goes. So James is reeling this in, and all of a sudden the fish like comes soaring out of the water, like literally like Free Willy out of the water, lands and spits the hook, and the guy just starts going off to James like, "Oh, you have to do this. Oh, you have to do this." And at the end of the trip, we kept calling him Captain Hindsight because he kept saying, "Well, if you had done this, the fish would have stayed on." Like, we're like, "Oh, thanks, Captain Hindsight." Like, we would have liked to know that like from the start.
Right.
And so, and they're a very competitive family. Like, they love to compete, whether it's like board games to like spike ball kind of games to even like fishing and stuff like this. So the second one, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna sit here on the boat, give another like person the chance to reel it in. So, anyways, I was walking the back, and all of a sudden this pole dips. So then they're like, "Oh, look, grab it!" So I grab the pole and I start reeling, and I took an hour to reel this thing in. And the athlete in me was like, "Okay, I am going to bring this thing home. Like, I'm now competitive. Like, I'm not normally competitive, but I'm gonna be competitive." And I was like, the guy kept giving me all these tips, and he was the only time he was giving me tips going around the entire boat. I maybe did like 6 or 7 laps around the boat, and he's following me, giving me tips, talking to me. And then all of a sudden he just goes, "Damn, girl, you got some nice quads on you." And I was like, I'm like mid-fish. I'm drenched in my own sweat. I'm like heaving, like I can't catch my breath. And this guy's like, I don't even know, hitting on me, flirting with me. I don't know, complimenting me. I don't know. And I'm just like, what? I was like, I'm so confused at this point. But anyways, like a lot of moments like that. And then and their other sister that was there with us too was pregnant at the time. And she kind of was just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you said this. Oh my God, I can't believe you said that." And I'm just like trying to reel this fish in. And we got like in the heat in the like dead of July in Florida, which is pretty hot. And then we have like one that's pregnant. We got James who's like, "Well, I would have done that too." And then everybody else was like, "What did he just say?" So it was quite the experience for my first tarpon fishing. But thank you, Captain Hindsight, for showing me my first tarpon fish.
Captain Hindsight for the win. Like the side of your
seriously.
hind. Jeez, that guy. Hey?
Yeah. Yeah. It's all fun and jokes now because James tells stories so well that the entire ride home, usually after a long day in the sun, you like dread the ride home. But he just started like reaming off everything that happened, and he's like just giving us a good laugh the entire like 45 minutes all the way home. So it was very good. It was a good day at the end of it.
Nice. You love to hear it. Word on the street, growing up on the farm makes you incredibly handy as well. You actually saved the day at Josh's sister's wedding, right? When her zipper ripped off her dress right before the ceremony. Like, how'd you MacGyver that?
Oh yeah, it's so funny. Like their family like goes, "Ella, you know everything. You know how to do this. You know how to do that. You could fix anything." And then if you come to my family and ask my brothers that, they would like laugh because I'm probably the least handy in my family, maybe minus my mom. But like the dynamic in my family and then the dynamic in theirs, I just come off as this like godly figure because I can just figure out things like that, I guess.
That's awesome.
What'd you do?
But yeah, one of their her button on the back or her zipper, I can't remember. I thought it was a button, but anyway, it comes loose on her dress and she's about to go down the aisle. So I was like, "Oh, I actually carry a sewing kit in my like travel bag. Like I always just have had a sewing kit."
Oh.
And so then I whip that out and I start like sewing her button back, and they're just like, "Oh my gosh, Elle, you saved the day." I'm like, "It was just a button, but thank you."
It's
I'm
so
glad
funny.
we're all okay.
That's such a win.
Dude, it's so funny because both Joss and Jincy explained to me that story, and it was far more dramatic on their end. And you're just like, "I just had a sewing kit and I sewed it back on. That's what I did."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then even at Jincy's wedding, I
Yes.
ended up with a clipboard at one point, and I
We
was
heard
like
you were running the
directing
show.
people, and I was like, "What am I doing? She hired somebody to do this. Why am I the one with the clipboard here?"
Well,
But yeah, anyways, I was like hanging flowers, making flower arrangements, and they think I'm really handy, but really it's maybe just a little bit.
this is funny because you're like the wedding planner. There's Jenny from the block, and then there's Ella from the farm. And like she was in the wedding planner, right? So like you're way more of like the I guess you could say you avoid disasters. So it's like if you want someone with a clipboard and a sewing kit, hire Ella.
I'm your girl.
So we know what your we know what your post-hockey career is going to be.
Wedding
We'll
planning.
start the
Wedding
website.
planning.
So you're kind of giving all the traits right now of someone who could be a good team dad. Like, would you consider yourself team dad with the tasks you're able to pull off on Team Canada or on PWHL New York?
Yeah, I would say definitely more New York than I would say Team Canada. A lot of the girls, like said to me, I would vote you team mom or team parent or team dad for sure. So I'm like, really? I'm like, that's very sweet of you, but thank you. So that makes
I
me
feel
feel
like you have a
good
lot
going
of
into the
rogue
future.
characters in New York, though. Like, there's so many rogue characters.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have to keep them in line.
Yeah. I feel like our age gap is so different too, but there's so many similarities that it works. But they're also, it's like, hey, like, you're only let's reel it back in a little bit here. Or, yeah, you go loose, girl. You do what you want to do.
So we got Kelly Panic as the USA team dad, and we've got Ella Shelton as Canadian dad, mom, parent, if you will. Let's talk about New York a little bit. First of all, congrats on being nominated for
Thank
Defense Player of the Year. Heck yeah.
Thank you.
You should be super proud of yourself. You had one hell of a season. You had a tough job to do. But I feel like your time at Clarkson, you were always within the top scorers on the team anyways. So you were used to having to produce and having to be a part of the offense. So do you feel like your time at Clarkson really helped you prepare for this year with New York?
Yeah, I think my years at Clarkson, I think Matt and Brett Smith and Tony Macy did a good job of just knowing that I have like such a higher ceiling that I can go to. I think there were a lot of things that Matt saw that he could do for me to help me be better. I mean, playing with Savannah Harmon my first 2 years helped a lot. I think it made me feel super comfortable that I could go and take those high risk moments or be a little more risky and see if that helps me in producing for our team, whether it be a pass or a goal. I think that was something that they definitely helped me with. And Britt Smith did a lot of extra like Monday skills with me too. It would be like 3 of us would go out and we would all work on like one thing. But it's quite remarkable to think about in college. I feel like that's where you do so much of your learning and so much of your developing. And I think at that moment, that's where I was kind of like, oh yeah, okay, if I keep doing that, I think I will end up being more successful in the offensive zone. I think I had a really good defensive base, and I think that's why Matt really liked my style of play when I was in juniors. And now it was just kind of being like, okay, you're good defensively here, so let's just kind of push it and try and be a little more less defensive.
That's fair.
And how did that translate this season? Like, what did you like about what you were able to do this season, turn yourself a Defender of the Year nominee?
Yeah, I think this year for me, like going into this market, I think that there was a big role I had to fill, not only as like connecting with people and being a good teammate, but producing for our team and being one of those top reliable players for our team. And I think that was something that allowed me to be more creative and really just kind of fall into it however I wanted to. I think with it being so new, you don't know what to expect, I guess, from other teams or from your team or from yourself. And to go into there with any expectations and to just say, hey, let's just do it all. Like, let's just try and be everywhere and anywhere all at once. Like, why not? And if it's too much, then it's always easy to scale back. But sometimes it was hard to push forward for that. So I'm proud of myself for just being able to go in and taking hold of it and really coming into a role that I think I filled, and then hopefully continuing to fill that role in the future.
You basically are a leader. And when you lead, you kind of have to sacrifice the bod and do some stuff that, isn't always comfortable or whatever. So like blocking shots, taking one off the finger for the team. I heard you broke your finger for the team once. Is that what came of that? I don't remember you missing many games for it though.
Yeah, my finger. Well, I thought I broke it. I was telling everybody that I broke it. I was like, oh yeah, and girls like, it's broken. And to be fair, I had like bruised my finger before, but it was like just my nail part that it would just show like a bruise. But this time it was kind of like the whole part here was like purple. And I was like, for sure broken. Like, it's still swollen. It's been a week. And our trainer in New York grabs like the little ultrasound machine and she goes around my finger. And obviously it's sensitive, but I went like, ow, that really hurts. She's like, oh yeah, it's broken. We'll send you to the hospital to get it triple checked. So that day, my roommate was having like a hand x-ray. So me and her went to the doctor together to get our x-rays done. And anyways, we both go in there and get our x-rays done. We both come out at the same time. We look at each other. I go, anything wrong? She goes, nope. Anything wrong with you? I go, nope. I said, well, I just got told I'm a wimp. And she's a wuss too. The doctor was like, maybe just like Advil and like a little bit of ice. And your finger will be fine. Yeah.
Who on your team chirped you guys the hardest for that? Like, who let you have it the worst?
Everybody, for sure.
Yeah, you know what? We actually didn't go back and tell people. We just kind of kept it really low key. We were just like, okay, let's not bring this up again. Like, let's just say we didn't go or we don't know.
Quietly.
So we didn't end up really saying anything.
The results are inconclusive.
Yeah, we're waiting.
Waiting
on results.
It just hurts.
Yeah, until then we'll tough it out and play, guys. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry. It's just it's no big deal. Trust me. Don't even ask about it.
Jesse Eldridge is your roommate. Yeah, that's probably entertaining.
Yeah.
Heard you guys lived in the old Roach Motel.
Oh, Roach Motel. What's not to love about the Roach Motel? It was awesome, besides the fact that roaches were there. Like, other girls in our complex had like mice and ants, but for some reason ours was always cockroaches, like no matter what. And I remember finding one and I was like, Jess, what do I do? Do we kill it? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to deal with this.
Yeah, I wouldn't either, because they like can survive the end of the world, right? Is that a real thing?
What? Really?
Yeah,
I have no idea.
Did I make that up? I feel like that's real.
No,
I
don't know. I feel like I've heard that. I feel like if a bomb went off, they would survive for sure.
They're okay. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, even like an atomic bomb, they're just like, yeah, whatever. Well, I got to do roach research. I don't know about this. However,
we're spreading roach propaganda on the podcast here.
Back this trolley up a little bit. You said people in your complex, so you had roaches, other people had mice, and other people had ants. Who decided to live here? What's happening?
I don't know if I should out the person who said this was the best thing. But it was so fun. Well, it was too good of a deal to pass up. Like,
to understand why.
I wonder why.
Like, to have all of us in the same complex, and he's like, oh, I'll waive this fee and this fee. And we're like, sure, of course. Like, no one else is really waiving any fees. And now we understand why people are waiving fees, because it's the Roach Motel. So that's why.
That was just a 1-year lease situation, or are you guys going to be back for round 2 at the Roach Motel?
I can't say I'll be returning to the Roach Motel. I don't think any of the girls will be returning to the Roach Motel, but I think we're looking at other avenues for us.
I think that's a good choice.
We still paid the extermination fee every month too, and we were like, "This
every
isn't really."
Month? The place has a monthly extermination fee.
I guess Stamford, Connecticut. I don't know.
And why are you paying for it? That's do you also have like condo fees? Were there like other fees? Condo fees?
Yeah,
like,
we had like a few amenity fees, but like we still had the extermination fee in there. Like 99% sure.
That is motel. Crazy.
Yeah.
Where everyone ends up with a roommate they don't want.
Yeah.
A few.
Oh my gosh.
Arrive needs to change their slogan to "Don't just arrive."
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm glad I never visited you guys. That's so great.
We would never take you there. We would take you somewhere nicer. We'll take you to Abby's place. It's down by the harbor.
Nice,
Abby,
of course. Abby's got it all set up like that.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, May. Hey, hi, May Abby.
I know.
But they
enticing us to go there next year.
Do it. Absolutely. Live it up. Ella in the city. I mean, they say you can put Ella in the city, but you can't take Ella off the farm, but you can't take the farm out of Ella, I guess. Your go-to meeting and meals outfit was what? I heard all the ladies were very impressed with your attire.
Oh, I don't know. It was either between my overalls that I wore on a consistent basis, or it was the cool-down pants that I'm obsessed with. Like,
break both down for us.
Like, okay, so the overalls, like a staple piece here on the farm. Like, I got work overalls, I have going out overalls, I have casual overalls, I have fuzzy overalls too for the winter. Like, I got it all, like anything you need.
Nice.
And then the cool down pants kind of came I think it was maybe Calgary. I can't remember if it was Calgary in Denmark, but one of those two. We got these pants from Hockey Canada, and they were just like straight-legged, wide-legged pants that Nike has, like sweatpants. And I just became obsessed with them. I would wear them all the time, and they just became my cool-down pants. And then this past Worlds, we got the same pants, and I was so excited about it. And all the girls were like, "Do you want mine?" Like Renata, I took Renata's because she was like sitting this like close to me. She was like, "Do you want these? I'm never gonna wear them." Like, "Hey, yeah, give them here, girl. Do you want anything? I'll trade you." So yeah, and then always gotta have a good cool down pants.
Well, it sounds like it. I'm interested. Are they like, I call those elephant pants. Is that what you're describing right now?
I think so. They're just like, I don't know. They don't really give you much going on. They're just like nice and comfy.
Because they make you look like you have trunk legs. Is that why?
Yeah, 1990s.
Yeah,
male dress pants.
I like it.
That's 100% what comes to my mind. Remember those?
Yeah,
well, you weren't alive, Julia. So no, you probably don't remember. But
just me. Yeah, just me.
Just me.
Yeah, you weren't alive.
Yeah, you weren't alive. Have you worn the overalls though? Like your non-working, obviously the working ones are the dirty ones, but your nicer ones and the fuzzy ones you said, have you worn those in a walk-in ever? Like, did we miss something?
I did wear them in one walk-in. I think I was with Jess. I wore my black ones.
Oh, okay.
So I have worn them before, but sometimes I can't tell if like jeans are appropriate for game day attire. So sometimes I like overthink it, and then I'm like, I can't wear these. I can't do it. I don't want to ruin it, you know?
Yeah. Well, you want to be appropriate, dressed appropriately for the occasion. Yeah, that's fair. I feel like you guys just have free reign. You guys can do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, I feel like that's what it's come to now. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe next year I'll wear them way more often.
We're going to push for that.
We need to see the overalls more.
Yeah, all of them, especially the fuzzies.
Yeah,
I'll only wear those in the winter. I'll wear those in Minnesota.
There you go.
When it's cold.
Gosh.
That's where I'm at right now. Minnesota.
You
not
have
cold,
to.
but Minnesota.
Yeah. Ella, thank you so much for hopping on with us today. You're the best. Enjoy the farm. I'm sorry you have to pick rocks every day, but you'll be all geared up and in shape for next season.
Yeah, I'll keep me in farm shape for next season. But thank you so much, guys, for having me. Super excited, and hope you enjoy the rest of your summer, too.
Loved having you. Good luck next season, and good luck with Defenseman of the Year.
Thank you.
Send it segment. You guys know the drill. You send us your questions. We try to answer them. Our email, jocksandjills@gmail.com. Our Instagram, same thing, Jocks and Jills. TikTok, Jocks and Jills. Twitter, X, Jocks and Jills. You can DM us. You can send it anywhere. We love to hear from you guys. Questions, thoughts, comments, concerns. We even threw up kind of a last-minute one on our Instagram story tonight after the madness that was Game 5 to get some additional questions from you guys. But one... We didn't mention this in our headline segment, but the draft was announced this week. We'll dig into that a little bit deeper next week when we have less to talk about, obviously, because the championship is going to be over. But draft eligibility list dropped this week. 167 players were on it that are up for grabs in this year's PWHL draft. Official date announced June 10th, and somebody asked us on Instagram. It was Nikki O on Instagram. Curious why Abby Boreen is on the draft eligibility list when she's already in the league. And we talked a little bit about this, Tess, how good Abby Boreen was with Minnesota. They unfortunately had to activate her. I don't want to say unfortunately. That makes it sound negative because everything that she brought was positive, but doesn't get to play in the finals, obviously, because she was on one of those 10-day contracts.
Yeah, so when you're a reserve player, you can activate them for only one series in the playoffs. And they obviously felt like it was very important to have her come in the lineup and help punch their ticket to the finals. However, as a reserve player, so this is the same as the Claire Thompson thing that we talked about before, where you have to enter the league via the draft. You have to be drafted onto a team, and Abby Boreen was not, so she was a reserve player. So now she has to reapply and enter the league through the draft. Basically, is the most plain and simple way to put it. Ta-da!
Abby Boreen was obviously great for Minnesota. You can go on and on. That top line that was
so
all
good.
Minnesota born and bred. They were playing so well together. Terrible Chipotle order still, but we love her.
Awful. Worst in the league. We got to talk to her about this. It makes my juicers juice because it makes me feel like I'm going to barf when I think about it.
It
just
makes
because of
my
the texture.
juicers juice. What?
It does.
What is that?
In the worst way. You know when you're about to barf and your mouth starts leaking?
Yeah, but I've never heard anyone say when it makes my juicers juice.
Okay, but that's like
Dude, that's the funniest thing ever.
There's a good juicers
I know
juice.
exactly
and
what
there's a
you're
bad
talking
juicers
about.
Juice. Yeah.
Oh, what's the good one?
Well, the good one is like when someone's like, oh man, I could really go for whatever to eat, like let's say pierogies and steak, and you're like, oh yeah, that made my juicers juice. Like it made you think of something good, so it made you salivate. This way that I'm talking about, Abby Boreen's order made my barf juicers.
Your barf juicers.
Yeah.
Sorry to our listeners who have to listen to Tessa and I talk about juicers juicing for breaking down the statement for the last 2 minutes. We'll get back to that at some point. I can't let that go. Here's one from Tahila Milikowski. Do you know if there's a reason the U.S. national team coach isn't a coach in the PWHL? I have no idea how to spell his name. John Roblowski. It is kind of hard to spell. Or simply not hired. Is there a chance he could become the Pizza Rats, New York's new head coach? I don't know about this one, Tess.
I'm not sure why. Maybe he probably didn't put his name in the hat, I'm going to assume. He also has like big things coming up with the Olympics, right? So he signed through.
Totally.
So I don't know how much scouting he's doing, how much effort he's putting into that. I don't know what his whole agenda is. However, I mean, a lot of people, I was even talking with Becky Keller and Pounds and Kenzie just about it. And they're like, yeah, I could see him being up for the New York job. But I mean, I haven't talked to him. I don't know anyone close to him that has mentioned him as wanting to do it. But I mean, Troy's in the mix. So, I mean, why?
Yeah, do you think that there's going to be a separation about that eventually? I was thinking about this the other day. If there's going to end up being kind of like, listen, not a line drawn in the sand, but it's such a huge job to be a national team head coach or GM. It's such a huge job to be a PWHL head coach or GM. I wonder if there's ever going to be a distinction there.
I think too, just on the players' side of things, I don't know how much the player committee will
This
bring
was a
this
thing
forward,
apparently
but
this year. Remember, there was a little bit of talk about a lot of information.
Yeah. So, I don't even think it's the information stuff. That was such a BS. I don't know whoever brought that up. That was a reach. They probably threw their back out reaching on that one, but it's more familiarity. So you're used to your own players. So if there's, a player up against one of yours, well, you're going to go with the player that you're familiar with. But my argument to that is that just goes for any world championship coach, if or any world juniors coach, if there's a world juniors coach from the Q, well, there's going to be a lot more Q players on that team just because that's what they're familiar with. And can you really blame them? No, because you want coaches to have good feel on their team for certain situations, for power plays, for lines, for whatever, chemistry, but mostly for the in-game situation. So if a coach is more familiar seeing a player or coaching a player and knowing how they react or play in a certain situation, it's just an automatic click. There's no thinking. It's just like so-and-so go kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's across the board. So I think that anyone could say that about Troy or John Robleski, but yeah. So I mean, I guess I'm kind of arguing against myself in a sense, but
you brought it up even earlier this year, Tess, when you were like, I don't even know if I'd want to play in Toronto because it
wouldn't. No way.
It'd just be tough. You know what I mean? I think that's what I meant more than information. It just adds a layer of something into the equation in the league that, I don't know, I wonder if it's going to become something that they decide they don't want anymore.
Yeah, and I think for myself, I said that based on the fact that that's the type of person that I am, and that's how I always treated my career, where I was in it to have a good time. And when I say that, I don't mean like go out and partying every other night. I mean, I wanted to play hockey, having free and fun, right? As opposed to
me so much for those girls on Toronto that were so dialed this year. Like every game must feel a little bit like a tryout. Yeah.
Oh, and that's what I don't even know if it was a tryout, but like you're under the thumb, like you're on it, like your coach is evaluating you, and like having gone through 3 centralizations, it's a stressful situation, man, and it's a lot, and only because you're competitive and you care, right? And not to say that when you're away from your coach that goes away. It doesn't. It just there's less weight on it. And like I said, I was the type of player that liked to play loose and free, less thinking, more doing kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I felt like I never truly got that, and it could have been just the coaches I played under too, when I was with the national team. But yeah, I just felt like when you're there and it's constantly a tryout and everything's being evaluated and everything you do is being looked at, it's just like a lot for no reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So why would you
Depends
want
on
that
the
for
kind of
yourself?
mindset you got, honestly.
And that's
Some people
it.
it probably
You could
doesn't
be a
bother at all. Yeah.
dude, yeah, you could be a player that actually benefits from that. Like you might be
Right.
someone that's like, I actually need that to keep myself in line and to keep myself on track. You know what I mean? And I play
Totally.
better that way. Whatever. Regardless, like from the player standpoint, there could be players complaining, saying, those players have an unfair advantage because they're being evaluated and looked at, and they're getting, more looks under a head coach than I am playing over in New York, yada, yada,
Right.
yada. Or it could be the flip side where it's just like, yeah, but you know what? That's just what it is in every World Juniors, World Championship. Under 18, it's just a coach that goes with what they know. And
That's true.
at the end of the day, the moral of the story is just to win. And you're taking who that coach thinks is the best group that they can coach to win. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. We just got into a little bit of like a philosophical chat there. I liked it, Tessa.
Would you look at that?
Would you look at that? Okay, I threw up an Instagram story, got some
Mhm.
questions about Game 5. We picked a couple of them. What are your thoughts on playoff MVP so far? I'm thinking Heisey or Frankel, depending on who wins. I think those are, and that's from Grace Weaver 101. I think those are
Yeah.
some damn good picks, girl. I think it's got to be, if Boston wins, it's got to be Frankel. Can't be anyone other than
100%.
Frankel.
There's
if
nobody
Boston
else
wins.
other than Frankel. Look at Mueller's
With
trying to make a case for
Minnesota,
herself.
for sure.
Minnesota's a different story. Tell me what
Yeah.
you think. Giving a thumbs
Minnesota,
up there.
did something happen? Did I get a little
Yep.
emoji?
You did.
Oh, fun. So Heisey is incredible.
Yep.
She's definitely in the mix.
Mhm.
It's Heisey or Cava, right?
No, I honestly think that yes and no. Heisey 100% because that girl's just elevated her game. She's got the most points in the playoffs right now with 7.
Yeah.
But the second Sophie Jakes scored that overtime winner, I mean,
Sure.
I know that all the votes had to get put in before that, who the winner was going to be if Minnesota had won. I have no freaking clue because I don't have the envelope. I don't get to read it, and it didn't happen. But look,
Did you get to vote?
no, I'm not a voter. Nope.
Okay.
But you can make an argument for Sophie Jakes, 1,000,000%. You can make let's say if Michaela Cava scores the OT winner, you're making
Totally
a case
her.
for her.
For
If
sure.
we go to Boston Game 5 and Nicole Hensley makes a 54 save performance to get a
Yeah.
shutout to have her team win, and a fourth liner scores for Minnesota, there's an argument there too. And look, that none of that is taking away from how amazing Taylor Heisey has played in these playoffs, but it took Taylor Heisey how many games to get going in these playoffs? Right? Now,
2 or 3,
tonight,
yeah.
in Game 4, she was a woman on fire. Like, she was pulling moves where I was like, ooh, 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 to the point where I was like, the Royale softest hands thing, I'm like, I'm just going to throw her in it. I'm just pulling an audible here and tossing her face up on our graphic because, like,
For sure.
sweet Jesus, in the neutral zone, I was like, move it, pass it, move it, pass it. And she's like, no, I'm just going to deke through everybody. I was like, this is silly. This kid,
Yeah.
and to be honest and to be fair, after that goal called back, got called back, I was like, Taylor Heisey's going to be pissed. She's going to go score right away. Like, as a coach, I'm like, put her out there right away, 100%. Let her make that right. And they did. And unfortunately, she didn't. But, like, she had that mojo going where I was like, oh, you lit a fire under somebody, and it's her. And she's going to want to go make it right. And she can by herself. And to be able to do that in a league like this, you're something special. So would I scoff at Heisey, Cava, Jakes? No. I would just be like, yeah, that sounds about right. Like,
Yeah, you're right.
There's no wrong answer there.
For sure. It's been by committee.
Yeah.
Last one. Ashlyn 1016. Why do you think Boston rushed off the ice after scoring? I love this, Sally, I have to tell you. Like, when it's in overtime and you can just lead your team off the ice, I love it.
That's a Kachuk thing, a Matthew Kachuk thing, and it was like, get on the bus, let's get out of here and go home. We spent enough time here.
He did
And
it a
that's
couple
it.
times, right? It's such a cool
Yeah.
Sally. I think it's awesome. I think it's nails when you just go off. You're like, all right, let's go, girls. Let's go back home.
You're not celebrating with anybody here. There's like maybe 5 Boston jerseys in the mix, and one of the list. Oh, this is another thing I got to bring up, by the way. Hillary Knight's brother was in the crowd tonight. He's
my favorite. Oh,
Will,
okay.
Will was in the stand. I'll tell you what. Will wasn't allowed to bring in his cowbell.
That's a travesty.
Is Boston going to allow the bell? I don't know. But Will,
she's got to have enough pull in Boston to get the bell in the building.
Will was fired up. He's going to be in Boston. He's flying back super early tomorrow morning. And I don't know if Will is the X factor for Boston.
He might be.
But hey, he showed up in game 4 and they won. Wasn't there in game 3.
Let's see what happens in game 5, Tess. You got some traveling to do. I got some junior hockey to do. Before then, when we talk to you guys next time, there will be a PWHL champion. Then we're going right into the draft. It's a real exciting time of the year. We appreciate you guys listening. Drop us a subscribe on YouTube. Drop us a follow on X or Twitter, Instagram, wherever you can. We appreciate talking to you guys. Reach out to us on any one of those platforms. Our email is jocksandjills@gmail.com if you want to get in touch. Thank you to our sponsors, Pizza, CCM, of course, Nobis, Royale. You guys are all the best. We love you, and we love you guys for listening, especially. We'll talk to you next week.
Baton Rouge.